Hello, everyone. I'm Dominique Johnson-Lindsay, and welcome to the Active Listener Podcast by Lightspeed. For the past 3 decades, Lightspeed has journeyed with educators and tech experts across school districts. With our Active Listener Podcast, we are bringing the stories and experiences of our customers, education experts, and our own team members on how listening is foundational to education. Tune in as we amplify these vital voices and understand more about the people shaping the future of education. We hope every podcast listen will be a learning opportunity with Active Listener. All right, welcome everyone to another episode of the Active Listener Podcast. I'm super excited about this one. Today on the Active Listener Podcast, I'm joined by Pat Hamilton. So Pat has this really long, amazing bio. I'm going to give you some quick pieces and then I'll let him fill the rest in. He is the Alliance Director at the I Love You Guys Foundation, which are a Lightspeed partner. So that's one reason that I met him and have the lovely opportunity to have him here today. He is a leader focused on team development, culture, and change management, all things that are super important that we know exist in the educational space. And then lastly, an advocate for safe, supportive school communities where students can thrive. So with that, Pat, fill it in for me.
Yeah, I will. And thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. And we love having Lightspeed as a mission partner. So, um, before joining the foundation as the Alliance Director, I spent 23 years in public education. I was always on the operation side of the house. And just so happened, by the way, during that time that we happened to be Lightspeed customers. It wasn't until after the fact when I was with I Love You Guys Foundation that Tony and I were talking and we put that together. It's like, wait a minute, you sell that product? Oh, we had that in all of our schools, and it was super important for all of our students that had hearing impairments. And then we started talking about how that work can influence your work influences our work and how communication is so important during a crisis. So 23 years in public education. Again, my last almost decade of that was with Adams 12 five-star schools as the chief operating officer. And then I joined the foundation when I retired. I quickly unretired. My wife says I traded up and now I work in nonprofit and work that I'm really passionate about, which is school safety. We need to be able to provide our students and our teachers a safe and secure learning environment, and that's what we're all about. And the foundation was started by the parents of Emily Keys. So John Michael and Ellen Keys started the foundation just a few days after losing Emily in 2006 at Platte Canyon High School in a shooting situation there. And the mission has always been to protect the joy of youth, and that's what we try to do through educational programs. And you'll hear me say this probably a few times throughout the day today. But yeah, definitely all of our resources are available at our website, iloveyouguys.org, all at no cost, no subscriptions, no cost. So, and that's because of mission partners like Lightspeed and others. So thank you very much for having me.
Of course, of course. I'm so excited to dive into this conversation. Of course, Lightspeed has really been pushing forward the message of how we fit into the safety space. Obviously, we came up with a integration with our product that allows us to kind of enter this space. And I think it was very important for us to work with these mission partners like you to really understand how we can make an impactful difference and what the safety conversation even looks like for schools. Because I think a lot of times if you're not in a school, you think about it one way, but safety is so much more than that. So I definitely want to dive into all of that today. Starting at the top, and you just kind of mentioned it, the mission of I Love You Guys Foundation is to restore and protect the joy of the youth. Why do you think that mission is so important for today's educational landscape?
It's interesting here's what I would say about that. So the Keys family wrote that mission statement just a few days after losing Emily, and it remains unchanged. When we have our board retreats, annual board retreats, the board. I spent a decade on the board before joining the foundation on this side of the house, but we would revisit that mission statement usually annually and say, is it still relevant? Is it still pertinent? Yeah, absolutely. It's still very much relevant. Kids need to be able to be kids. Part of being a kid and is having a great educational experience and and being taught in an educational environment that supports high quality education and student safety all at the same time. In fact, when we go around, we talk to parents. If you ask parents sometimes, if you're an educator, what's the most important thing for the day? Like, well, I want you to keep my kids safe, and I want you to provide them a high quality education. And many times it's in that order for a reason. So protecting the joy of youth and understanding that there is a component of life that has to be happy and fun, and it should be happy and fun. And if we're doing our jobs as adults, then we can make sure that students have those opportunities. Now, here's something else that we say: youth is not wasted on the young. So keep that in mind. So let's make sure that we're all in those moments as well too. So schools, our communities, those are supposed to be places where we thrive and we get together and we have great conversations, and there's meaningful moments, and we can have those moments when we provide an environment that is a safe environment for people to be welcome and to know that there's a plan if a crisis were to occur. And I'm not talking about just like we always go to the worst case scenario, but the SRP is an all hazards approach. It's dealing with the things that we just deal with on a daily basis in schools. You might have a medical emergency in a hallway and you need to go into a hold in your classroom. That's not that bad of a situation. It's just something that we need to have a plan for. Same with something's going on away from your campus. You just need to bring everyone in to keep them secure. So we go into secure for that. So it's an all hazards approach to running your school that makes your school a much safer environment.
I think you kind of just answered this question a little bit, but I kind of want to formally ask you. So when a lot of people hear school safety, they do think of the absolute worst. We know because we hear it on the news all the time, but safety is so much more than that. We've learned that, obviously, just being more in the space and hearing about the response protocols that are in place at most schools. And so how do you define school safety as far as like what it is that school safety kind of like all encompasses?
Sure. I think it starts with preparedness. And so when John Michael and Ellen Keyes, the first couple of years of the foundation, they were really kind of thinking about what the response to that tragedy was going to be. And they were going around and they were talking to law enforcement agencies, they were talking to school districts, and they were trying to figure out, like, well, what do you do in that crisis? What is your plan? And what they were continually hear would be, well, we have a plan for this, and then really that was it. Or we have these very complicated multi-page, like 30-page documents that are flip charts that are scenario-based crisis response plans. And so they immediately determined, well, not immediately, over 2 years, they determined like really what we need is common language. We need to create a common language in all schools, law enforcement, community members. If they can understand that common language, then we can eliminate so much confusion when it comes time to respond to a crisis. And so the terms are hold, secure, lock down, evacuate, and shelter. It's nothing super complicated, but any crisis that you deal with in a school, you're going to be able to take one of those 5 actions and help keep students and staff safe. So it started with this whole concept of we need to create common language, and then we need to make sure that it's commonly understood with our communities. So it's not just work that you're going to do with the school. When you implement the standard response protocol or the standard unification method, this is a highly coordinated effort. So it starts maybe with something as simple, though, as buying a cup of coffee for your law enforcement partner. Maybe it's something that, as a school administrator, maybe you don't think about calling up the deputy chief or your SRO sergeant and buying them a cup of coffee. But that's exactly how this starts. So it starts with this conversation of we want to do something that puts us all on the same page of music. Let's all play from the same page of music. It's going to go much better when we're dealing with a crisis. All hazards approach is, on any given day in a school in the country or across the country, you might have a dysregulated student in the hallway. We can just go into a hold. All we're going to do is just put kids into classrooms, keep kids behind a locked door in a classroom. We're not going into full on lockdown. It's just, let's bring them inside, clear the hallways so whoever is out there dealing with that situation can deal with that. It gives the person who's having the crisis some dignity, and it keeps our hallways clear so our responders can do their job. Same with like in a medical emergency. I mean, that was common thing that you would have maybe a student's having a medical crisis or a staff member's having a medical crisis. Something as simple as we have a plan how to deal with that. We're just going to bring everyone into the classrooms and we're going to hold them there, business as usual inside the classroom. We're still going to teach. Teachers are going to teach and learners are going to learn. but it keeps us and lets us deal with things in the hallway that are happening. And then there's things that are out of our control too on a daily basis. You know, you don't know. We would deal with this one a lot, but perhaps there's something going on down the street. Maybe you've got a dangerous animal on the playground. I was from Colorado, so occasionally we would have coyotes on the playground sometimes, but rarely a bear. But bears do happen in a different part of Colorado on the playground. If you have that, you need to go into a secure. Let's get everyone inside. Let's lock those doors. Business as usual inside. But we have a plan for what we're going to do if we have something happening outside of our campus or even on our campus that we don't want to get inside the building. So it's this concept of, you know, this is what we're going to do in all of these crisis situations. Evacuate. We've been doing evacuation drills since I was a little kid. We did fire drills. It's kind of that is the one, right? It's like we've all done those. We've all done them since we were little kids. But now we can evacuate for other reasons. Maybe someone burned popcorn in the building and it set the fire detectors off or smoke detectors off. That certainly has happened in my facilities. Or maybe it's a hazmat spill or something like that. Chemistry class goes awry and you need to know to evacuate the facility. Again, we've been doing that one for a long time. There are certainly parts of the country where shelter in place makes sense. It could be for tornadoes, tsunamis, earthquakes. Those things just happen. And then, of course, the one that we think about and we never want to happen is lockdown. And that's when there's an active threat occurring inside your facility. There's something that's occurring there that requires you to take the most evasive, the strongest, most secure posture you can take, which is let's get everyone into a classroom, locks lights out of sight, lock the doors, turn the lights out, and get out of sight. So those are the 5 actions. It's based, again, it's all hazards. So you can deal with the very simple things to the very complicated things. But the key thing is everyone knows those actions. They know what those words mean, and they've trained and you've drilled and you practice those things. And you created an environment where we can protect the joy of youth.
I love it. And so, first of all, so detailed. I remember first learning about this because I think I've been in environments where they've already used this language, and I think it wasn't as obvious to me, like, oh, this is something intentional that people are doing, until I start working more with our Cascadia product and going to different conferences and kind of hearing how schools are doing this and what things they're looking to, you know, achieve with this, and just hearing case studies about it. So I think it's so unique to hear how this protocol transcends any one incident, because again, when you're talking about it, it's like a very simple thing. And I think that's so important when you're trying to kind of bring change into a school, that, you know, it cannot be overly complex. That is one thing that we try to, you know, center a lot of our products around, is ease of use. You know, if it feels too hard for people, they're not going to want to do it. So just hearing how it works, I'm like, oh my God. It, one, sounds amazing, and 2, I feel like it's just really, really easy to understand. And I think that's just really important, even for the kids. So one question I have is more related to involving kids in emergency preparedness. What do you feel like is more of a challenge for involving the kids and understanding the importance of this side of things, I guess?
Yeah, I'll give you some history. So in 2006, that was when when we lost Emily in that Platte Canyon High School shooting. I was actually working with John Michael's sister, who was an SRO sergeant for Broomfield Police Department. She was, so she ran part of our SRO division for some of the schools that we served. And she and I were in a training one day, and we were talking about, this was just a few months after, it was in December of 2006. And we were talking about the effectiveness of our drills and how we were struggling sometimes with the students taking those drills seriously. That turned into like an 18-month-long project for us, like where we were meeting with students, we were meeting with parents and teachers, and we were having all kinds of conversations about what does this look like? What should it look like? How do we move away from these complicated books? And one of the things that the aha moment for us was, we've not been telling kids and teaching kids, our students, about why this is important. So once you start having those conversations with your students and empowering them with the information, all of a sudden our drills became much more, they were taking the drills much more seriously. And this is another thing that happened. They became leaders in the classroom. So we might have a substitute teacher that maybe a brand new substitute that we hadn't had an opportunity to review the standard response protocol with, and we were gonna do a scheduled, announced lockdown drill. They're always announced, scheduled and announced. And so we go into that classroom, and the substitute teacher might tell us when we unlock the door to tell them, okay, this is thank you very much, you did a great job. And the substitute teachers might say something like, I didn't know what to do, but the students told me exactly what to do. So empowering those students is super important. Now, challenges with that oftentimes are age appropriate content, right? So we have, if you go to our website, again, I told you I would say this a few times, iloveyouguys.org, and you click on the standard response protocol tab, it's going to be on the lower left-hand part of the screen. Scroll down about halfway, you're going to find a brand new video that we just launched a few months ago called 5 Minutes, 5 Actions. That is actually scripted and it's cast. We use the high school cast in Stillwater, Minnesota, but it's students talking to students about what the actions are. So it's in their voice. And then we are working on and are almost done. I think we'll have it done for school year next year. And that is a preschool through second grade version of the standard response. It's a book, and it's about a moose who gets on the loose on a playground. So there's a moose on the loose. So some of the difficulties have been like, well, what is the age appropriate conversation to have? Well, obviously I'm not a professional educator. I'm going to rely on my professional educators to make that decision, and parents as well. It's super important that parents are involved with those conversations. What I want to do is give them resources. So here's a whole bunch of tools that you can use. Have the conversation that works for the age of the students that you're talking to. And then the last thing that I would say, I think this is really important, Dominic. I go around, I do have the opportunity to go around the country and talk to people about this stuff. And I will ask them, if you're not communicating about your lockdown drills to your parents in advance, start to do that. Send them a letter, send them an email, whatever that's going to be, and tell them, on this date, we're going to do this drill. Here are some talking points that you can, for you. So when your student comes home at the end of the day and you ask them, how was school today? Or you said, what did you learn at school today? And they say, Mom, Dad, we had a lockdown drill. Now we've just given you some talking points so you can continue to have that conversation at home. Like, well, let's unpack that. Let's talk about that. So we're going to give you schools. You all have crisis mental health people on your teams. Engage that group and say, what could we tell our parents? How could we extend this conversation to the home, not just school? Because in the end, these aren't just school lessons. These are life lessons. And it's something that we can all use. So I think that's kind of one of the biggest challenges is like, what do we say to students? How do we keep it age appropriate? Educators, I trust you to do that job. I'm going to give you as many resources as I can to make it easy. And then also, let's just make sure that we're telling our parents so they can have some conversations at home too.
I love that. And I think that is so important. First of all, I love this moose on the loose idea. I will be looking for this. So I have a little one. And of course, that repetition of just instilling information in them, especially the little ones, they are so new to the school environment that I think that is such a great idea. I'm like, oh my God.
Based on a true story from one of our school districts in Alaska that uses our programs. Yeah, based on a real story.
That's awesome. Scary, but awesome. I also feel like moose are like cute. So
yeah, they are.
But I was gonna say, just kind of hearing how you're walking through all of this, I'm curious about what do you see are biggest misconceptions when it comes to schools in doing a lot of this crisis preparedness and like emergency planning? Like, what are things that kind of feel like they almost get in the way? Because it seems like they have so many things that's kind of lined up for them, but we know school is, abundance of competing things all the time. And so kind of what are those things that get in the way of getting this done?
I think there's a few things. Schools are very dynamic environments. There's always something, like you said, competing interest. But I think one of the things that often gets in the way is the thought that this is going to be scary. And so, in fact, what we should do is be making an effort that it's not scary. So the concept of having a lockdown drill, there was a time where schools were doing things like making loud noises, or they might even shoot off a gun with blanks or something like that, or do things that were introducing trauma and drama into something that really should be trauma and drama free. So I think that oftentimes is one of the barriers. Is like, this is going to be scary. We don't want to scare kids. We don't want to create. We don't want to our drills to create, you know, trauma for kids where it's going to be difficult for them to come back to the school and have a good learning day. So I think that's one of the key things is, again, that's why I was emphasizing earlier about announcing those drills. Let's make sure that we know it's a drill. And we're going to talk about why we do these drills with the age appropriate students. And our others, maybe we're introducing that conversation about the moose on the loose. But at some point, you need to have a conversation. This is why we do these things. This is what we're going to do. And now we're going to do it. And we're just going to walk through the actions. So that is about creating muscle memory or muscle habit. Depending upon, some people say muscles don't have memories, but they do have habits. But we're going to create that muscle habit of going through that motion of locking the door, turning lights out, and getting into our corner, or that safe place in your classroom. So if we can get past the idea that these drills and the things that we practice need to be traumatic in order for people to learn from it, I think we can start to reduce a number of those barriers. Now, when we do, I've been through probably thousands of fire drills, throughout my career as working in public education and as a student and things like that. Not one time do I ever remember someone setting the trash can on fire inside the building to practice. We didn't have to do that. We didn't have to get down and crawl on our knees. I have an opportunity to fly, I'm going to get on a plane tomorrow morning early. They are not going to go to 37,000 feet and then drop the oxygen mask out for us to practice. They're going to tell us about it, what to do if it happens before we ever leave the ground. And again, those are non-traumatic experiences, but we all know what to do when we're in that situation because we've heard that so many times. So there's some beauty in repetition. We're learning those muscle memories and muscle habits, and we don't have to do it in a way that creates trauma and drama. And then I'd say the other thing too is making sure that we're communicating with our parents and our community ahead of time. This isn't something that we want to spring on anybody. So having those conversations with your law enforcement partners, having that conversation at your PTA or PTO meeting with your parents. This is what we do. Here's the classroom posters. By the way, that's available in over 20 languages on our website, iloveyouguys.org. And same with parent handouts. So it's just communication. I can't say that enough. And if you can do those things and really get out in front of your community and get out ahead of the messaging, I think a lot of those things that are the hurdles to doing this go away. And then the last thing is it's easy. You really can. 5 minutes, 5 actions, you can cover it. You'll see it on the video.
Makes total sense. But you made me think about something that I've seen before. So I kind of want to just know like your thoughts on it, because I thought this, first of all, I've never seen it before. So to see it was different. Full scale exercises. So obviously full scale exercises are not really geared towards students. I'm guessing I'm saying this right. In my opinion, they're not geared towards students. The ideal is all of the law enforcement agencies and all of that, like being able to practice more of like their collaboration with each other. I know there are some students that I guess can maybe sign up to participate depending on the school. And they kind of do something a little bit more involved. Just hearing about it, it seems like it takes a lot of effort to set up. But they do a lot of the things that you're talking about. So I've seen it like talked about on the news in advance. I've seen just where they recruited volunteers, like community folks can donate things. Like it seems like an all hands approach to just understanding what goes on with safety in the school. What do you think about full scale exercises and kind of like how does that fit into what you all do as far as like training people or helping people understand what they should be doing?
Yeah, there is a time and a place for full-scale exercises. So how our law enforcement is going to train for one of those situations, or our first responders are going to train for that, is going to be much more in-depth and involved than what our students are going to ever see. So what we would do in my district, and I think I hear about these from other districts all across the country as well, is that's something that does take months of planning, and it's something that typically you're going to do during the summer months. So students are going to be out of the buildings, or maybe it's during an extended break. Maybe you have a full week off at Thanksgiving or spring break week or something like that, and with students are away from the building, we're going to bring in law enforcement, our first responders, many of our staff members, if they volunteer for those things. We never required our staff members to participate in a full-scale exercise. But that is now a training that's geared towards our law enforcement and letting them practice their response in our own facilities, which is really important. And you're also going to have a lot of people there that maybe aren't necessarily in your school. So you're going to have those patrol officers, or you might have, depending upon where you are in the United States, maybe you might have like a game warden that's part of a response team that you don't even know about. And it's the first time they ever get to go see your school, but they're going to go spend a full day in your school learning how to how the tactics are going to work in that space based on the environment that they're in. And so all those things are very important for our law enforcement, first responders, fire, so medics as well. Like, nowadays, there's a medic oftentimes, there's a medic that's going in from fire with that first response team. So if they encounter someone who's maybe injured, they can start trying to, they want to stop the killing, stop the bleeding, save lives. That's kind of the order of things that they do for our first responders. But all of those people being able to practice and interact in an environment that we provide, being our school, because that's where we want them to be most effective, is super important. Is it appropriate for students to be there? That's a conversation to have at your district, I would say, but asking for volunteers, maybe the drama club wants to wear makeup or do something like that and participate, but just know that there's a lot of coaching, I think, and maybe even some crisis mental health components that follow that training to make sure that the students are good. But the effectiveness of that type of training for our law enforcement partners is really, really important. Our first responders, we need them there. We want to do those things, but just not with kids. This really should be drills versus exercises. Drills, trauma-free, drama-free. We're learning that muscle memory, muscle habit. Exercises, lots of people, very complicated, lots of people involved. We're learning things like traffic patterns in and out of your school. We're going to learn, again, how to move around the school in a way that makes sense for our first responders. So those things are two different things altogether, and certainly drills for kids, full-scale exercises. Let's let the adults do that.
I love it. Okay, and that's a perfect way to look at it. So I kind of had it right, but I love the context that you added there.
I thought you did a great job explaining that.
Okay, so one thing, I know we've talked a lot about what's happening at the school, the other side that I feel like has become a little bit more, I've become more aware of, is the reunification process. I think a lot of times when we're thinking about something happening, some type of emergency or crisis, again, of any type, because even when the example I'm thinking of, it was weather related. It had nothing to do with, a true crisis, I guess. And the ideal was, there has to be a process in place for people to pick up their kids from another point, and that you also have to practice how to get there if you go further than like the school parking lot. So of course, even myself growing up, when we have fire drills and all this stuff, you just go out to the parking lot. That's like pretty normal. But of course, in these major events, there are sometimes people get on buses and go to a whole nother location. And I think obviously there has to be some rhyme or reason to it, but there is a certain point of parents being in panic, where they need to know where their children are. And so that presented this like school talking about what their reunification process looks like. And I was so amazed to hear how in detail this was, because in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, you really don't use this at all, because most things happen at the school. We're going to handle it with the school. So can you talk to me about reunification and what you all recommend as far as that process, I guess in comparison to what we've already talked about?
Yeah, I will start with our general philosophy about reunification and just things that happen at school. So cops own the crime, fire owns the flames, medics are going to own the patients, and schools own the kids. And so when it comes to reunification, schools, you own the kids. We have to have a process and a plan to do this. I don't know if you'd say it's fortunate or unfortunate, but I stopped counting at 30 reunifications. I've done 30 real reunifications. These weren't drills. These were actual real reunifications in my school district. And it's not that our school district was like, there was crazy stuff happening all the time. It's just once we learned how to do it and we learned the foundation calls it, it's the standard reunification method, also available on our website, iloveyouguys.org for those of you listening. So the standard reunification method though, it's an easy concept to understand. It makes when you go through the operational guidance that you can download off of our website, or you look at or you go to one of our trainings and you understand the process. It's like, oh, this is actually not that complicated. What's complicated though is the first time you have to practice it. So that's where it starts to feel complicated. But once you've walked through it for 20 minutes, you're like, this totally makes sense. It's very easy to understand. The reason I say that I stopped counting at 30 is we would use that. That was a tool in our toolbox. And so we had a power, if we had a power outage at a school, which happens in Colorado, or a water main break, or whatever those things are that are outside of our control, had nothing to do with an act of violence. But at 10:30 in the morning, if I've got an elementary school that's preschool through fifth grade, I'm not going to ring the bell at 10:30 in the morning and just let first graders walk home. I can't do that. I can't put them on a bus. I don't know what they're going home to. Like during the normal release of a day, at the end of the day, we know that our parents have a plan for those students to, they're going to go to this certain, maybe they're going home, maybe they're going to relatives or neighbors, whatever that's going to be. If we disrupt that normal kind of end of day, then we need to have a plan to get students back with their parents. And it's an exchange of custody. I'm going to relinquish custody as a school district. I'm going to turn that custody over to you, parent or guardian. So the process it involves a card. It's kind of, again, when you go to our website, you'll see it as a card that's tears in half. So parents are filling out that card while they're in line. We're going to verify the information on the card with an ID. We're going to check in our student information system to make sure that parent or that adult that's there to pick up that student is been approved previously to do so as an emergency contact. Then you're going to follow a line of parents around to another spot. There's going to be someone who's going to take the bottom part of that card. We call them a reunifier. They're going to walk into the school. They're going to get the student, and they're going to come out. And while they're bringing that student out, they're going to say something to the effect of, maybe it's within eyesight, but out of earshot. And that's going to be, do you know who that person is? Yes. Do you feel safe going home with that person today? Or it might be, depending upon the information on the card, hey, your older brother should have picked you up. Do you feel safe going home with your older brother? Yes. So that's kind of a very, very fast version of that process, but it's an organized way to exchange custody between the school and some sort of legal guardian or emergency contact for that student. And it's during those days when, again, it's just, we have to end school early. Now for a high school, it's going to look a lot different for me for a high school. If it's a water main break for a high school of 2,500 kids, I'm probably not going to do that. I'm probably going to let their parents know at 1:00 today or 1:30 or whatever time it is, 10:30, we are going to run bus routes. We're going to let our drivers that drove here drive home, and we're going to let our walkers walk. But parents, we're giving you a 30-minute or 45-minute head start to let you know that we're going to do this. Make plans accordingly with your students. Because reunifying 2,500 students, we're probably going to save that for those days that are a really significant type of crisis, an act of violence or something like that, criminal activity that's occurred on the campus. But for the little kids, and even my middle schoolers too, I mean, it was just a number of reasons. Something that we train now is we have we're going to soon be rolling out a tabletop exercise training day, and that's based on an attempted abduction of a 10-year-old girl off of a campus. That suspect was still at large for several days, and so that at the end of that day, though, we had 3 schools that were all within about a mile that we needed to reunify, because I wasn't comfortable letting students just walk home in that environment. I didn't know if there was going to be another attempt. Same with, we were literally running a reunification at one of our middle schools because it was a power outage and the second floor of the building was almost 90 degrees and I couldn't keep kids in the building. While that was happening, we had a drive-by shooting that was unrelated to the school, but it just so happened that it was in front of one of our schools, and the victim crawled up onto school grounds. So we had to evacuate that facility and then go run reunification. So now I had 2 reunifications going at the same time. And then on top of that, I had an elementary school that was a magnet school. And then I had just a general ed school that was a few blocks away. So now I'm running all three of those schools in reunification at once. And so those things just happen. And we have to be prepared. What we don't want is complete chaos. The quicker we go through a reunification and get students back with their parents, the quicker we can get into crisis recovery mode. And the quicker we can recover from a crisis, the quicker we can get back to returning to learning, which is a key to all of this, right? So that's kind of the overview of reunification. And it really is just a process. Again, all the resources at no cost, no email, no subscription or anything like that. You can download all the materials. We have signage, we have role IDs, we have all of these things. You just download it and take it. Look what works for you, take what works for you. One thing I will say about reunification, it's a method. So standard reunification method versus standard response protocol. Protocol, we need that language to say the same. It's we want people to use that same language and understand the same concepts of that. There's more than 78,000 schools now using that language across the country. So it really want that to be, that's the protocol. Reunification method, everyone's going to have different resources available to you at any given time. Take what works for you and apply it. There's some general idea of how to set up a reunification site, why we do those things. Using that card tells your parents a lot of things without ever you saying it. You don't ever have to say that we have a plan for this. You just have that, hand them that card and they're like, oh man, they're prepared. So there's some things happening there. It's a little bit like Disneyland is what we say in our training. We're controlling the environment. In Disneyland, when you're standing in line, they're giving you things to think about and things to do because Disneyland is the happiest place on earth to stand in line. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to help control that experience in the line by making our parents part of the process. Fill this out, give us your ID, tell us who you are. All those kinds of things are making our parents involved in the process.
I love it. I love it. I feel like this is so eye-opening because anybody who does this kind of work, they think about it all the time. Like I had other security directors on here and it's like, they live this. Any ops person, they live this. So they're thinking about it all the time. How can we do this? How can we get it better? But to your point about Disneyland, there is a lot of magic to it for all the people that's on the other side of it, where they just see, especially when it's done really well, when the lines are moving, when you are clear about what side of the building to go to, all of these things are happening. You're like, oh my God, they're so efficient. And it's like, but we plan for this, we prepare for this, we live it all the time. And so I love just hearing the rhyme and reason behind all of it and how it all works, because I think sometimes that's even missing from people that actually work in schools. Like they go to the training and get, the 30-minute, 1 hour piece of it, but all of the what is happening in the background, why we do it this way, they don't always get that. They don't always pay attention to it the way I feel like they should. And I know this because I've been in places, this applies to corporate as well. There's clearly this same kind of thing that goes on where we are learning things and training. It's like, okay, well, I know to go out that door. And it's like, yes, but we're doing this for this specific reason. And I think we get a little bit more particular about it when it's our kids, though. Like it feels so much more like, okay, I need to lock in. So,
yeah. So, and for us at my school district, when I was there and what we trained in districts across the country is ideally, if you have people from your central office that aren't responsible for a daily supervision of students, if you can train those people to be your reunification team. So our staff that are at the school we call it the impacted site. So maybe the school's there, it's dark, the power's out. And so we need our students and our teachers to stay together because the students trust those teachers. That's their adult that they know in the building. So let's send adults down from our central admin office. Maybe you have, on my team, we had people from maintenance. So I had plumbers and carpenters, and I had curriculum specialists and people from HR and payroll, and all of these people would raise their hand every year. We would say, we need a volunteer team. And I would almost get 100 people every year that would say, yeah, we're available. Then we would go through like a 2-hour training with them and teach them, walk through it a little bit, and then they were ready to go. And then we could text them. We had a special text group if we needed to stand that team up. But yeah, the key is have a plan, practice the plan, and then when you go to do it, it's not so scary. And what you'll find is after you've done it a few times in those situations that were not something that involved an act of violence on your campus, those are opportunities to actually practice. You're doing a real reunification, but it keeps your reunification team sharp, ready to go. Make sure that you have all the materials that you need to do a reunification. So that's kind of how we looked at it as well. So we never hesitated. If there was any question at all about how we were going to end the day safely, the most safe thing you can do is hand a student to their trusted guardian, like a physical handoff. That is the most protective posture you can take. And so we just did that because it was an opportunity to practice in a situation that maybe wasn't going to be as emotional as maybe an act of violence would be. So why not practice it?
I love it. Yes, practice always. I feel like practice makes perfect applies across the board, but especially in situations of emergencies for sure. So
Okay, I have a confession. So I say this to people in front of rooms all the time. 30 reunifications, I've never had one that was perfect, ever. But I've had 30 that were successful. But every single one of them, we would debrief after. It's like, oh, if you just change this one thing, if I would put this table here or put some reunification tape or caution tape over on this side of the building to keep people from wandering off. So none were perfect, but they were all successful. So I think that's a good way to look at it too. Give yourself
I
some
love
grace.
that even more. Yes, that's what I was about to say. I love that even more. I'm like, I feel like perfection is hard to meet, so that is a perfect way to explain it. Last question before I get to my lightning round, because I can talk about this all day. It's really, really interesting to me. Literally, I've had two other safety people come on, and I feel like I can always do this for forever because I'm like, oh, wow, y'all do something so cool. So looking ahead, what gives you hope about the future of school communities and their ability to create these safe, supportive environments for every student? Just knowing that you literally look at this day in and day out, what do you feel about the future?
Well, I think what's promising is what we're seeing from technology and how technology is basically having a significant impact on rapid notification. And so, this starts with, if we think about our schools as concentric circles of security, and maybe we now have camera technology that can identify someone that has bad intent walking towards your school. Maybe it sees a gun or it sees a knife or something like that. And so then that starts a series of events that's locking doors. It's rapidly notifying people inside the facility to take a protective posture, to go into lockdown. So I think what we're seeing with how technology is advancing, and there's a significant component of that is AI, where AI is saying, okay, this is what I think. And there might be even, there's a part of that that's a human saying, yes, I agree, let's go into lockdown. Or, hey, there's a notification of something that's occurring outside your school, and now we're going to go into secure. But it starts with how fast we can get into those protocols. So common language is first. We have to understand the common language. So when we receive the notification, we know what we're going to do. We have to practice those things. We have to practice using the technology that we have available to us. So if that's going to be, if your teachers are wearing a communication device where they can initiate one of these protocols, do we have, or are we practicing using that? Because I've been surprised when I talk to teachers or school members, and I said, have you ever touched the button? Oh, no. I don't want to touch it. I don't want to do it. It's like, well, why not? It's practice. I mean, if it's going to go right to your 911 dispatch center, you might want to call them ahead of time and tell them we're practicing. But yeah, you need to give people an opportunity and space to practice using it. That's one of the things I will tell you. We had Top Cat systems in our schools. And so that was something that my teachers had those. They were very familiar with how to use those systems. And so daily incorporating your security and safety technology into your daily operations of your school makes it much more comfortable for people to use it on any given day. So I think that's an important part of it, is how fast communication is working. That partly is attributed to AI and AI identifying threats. So I think what we're seeing there is that we know that seconds save lives. And I think that's really important. And it's the speed of all of this is going so much faster than it ever has. And we know that that's going to result in safer schools for our students. So I have a lot of hope with that. I think the idea of have kind of moved past this idea that drills have to be scary. We talked about that a couple of times today. So we've moved past that now. I think there's a lot of studies out there that show that drills do not have a psychological impact on students if we manage them the correct way. Advanced notification, announce those. So I'm very hopeful that schools have gotten past the fear of actually conducting drills and understand that drills in all scenarios, we need to practice those. And that's what's going to make us better, right? Those are the things that give me hope. And then just I don't hear this nearly as often as I used to, and that is it would never happen here. People are preparing as if it could happen here. And so let's take that seriously, because all hazards approach, right? You can have a dysregulated student in your hallway. You can have a staff member who is having a heart attack. You can have the fire that's coming out of the mountains and you have to evacuate your school. Tsunamis, all of those things that we talked about, earthquakes. Those things can happen in anywhere. If that's the kind of things that you have in your community, it's just we have to take those things seriously. And people are getting over the fact that it can never happen here because they were only thinking about one type of crisis. When we say no, you have to be prepared to manage all crises in your schools because they can happen here. And on any given day, they're happening. On any given day, there's going to be someone that's burning popcorn in the classroom or in the microwave, and we're going to have to evacuate the school for a fire.
Absolutely. You are so right. And I love that. And just to hear you say it, I think, one, I agree just from my outside perspective, but also I think we're seeing it more. Hearing schools just talk about it at these different conferences, I think that gives us just so much hope that, like, oh my God, they're really moving forward in a way that we just haven't done before. Some of the things they're doing are so innovative. And I love that at the front of it, it is just this protect the kids, protect the teachers, and kind of create this safe space because we know like that is what's needed. And once that happens, learning can definitely happen. So
said that perfectly.
Okay, Pat.
Okay, lightning round. I'm going to take a drink of water because I'm preparing myself for this.
I'm excited. This is
all right. Here we go. Here we go.
Content of these episodes. This is always my favorite part because I'm so curious what people are going to say. So, okay. So, first question: if you could remove one barrier in education, any barrier, what would it be?
Money. Funding. Give schools all the money they want. You want it, you get it.
And then last question, what is your favorite sound?
Oh man, okay. I love the sound of like a hamburger on a grill, like when it's sizzling and there's fire, like that. It makes that sound. I love that sound because I love to eat. So that's my favorite sound. And then I have a second one though, and that's laughter. I love to laugh. You can tell I love to laugh, and I love to hear people laughing. And man, walking down the hallways of the school and listening to kids laugh was just amazing. So I do miss that part of my job, but I get to do that with adult learners now. But laughter and sizzling hamburgers. I'm hungry, I think.
Appreciate that. I think we've had one kind of similar to that, but I can appreciate that. I am a foodie kind of person, so I do appreciate a good burger, a good steak, any of that noise that's like, oh, I'm gonna eat something so good. So
yeah, it hits the senses.
With this, I want to say thank you so much for this. This was such a good learning experience for me, and I hope for our audience. And overall, just enjoy supporting what you all do at the I Love You Guys Foundation. I feel like from just entering into more of the safety space and learning about all the people doing good work in this space, you all definitely stood out above the rest as far as just like what you all do and the impact that you all are already making in schools. I think you said 78,000 and still going. So I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait to see you all take even more schools and move them into these great protocols that's going to help keep kids safe. So thank you so much.
Yeah, it's a privilege and an honor to do the work, and the work comes from a place of passion for us. So we're very passionate about it, and yeah, we love having mission partners like you all to help us do the work. So thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. So anytime you want to come back and let us know, and definitely make sure you keep us in the loop for when Moose on the Loose is coming.
I will. Keep an eye on our website. And we'll definitely, if you haven't signed up for one of our newsletters or following us on social media, find us on LinkedIn, sign up for our newsletter on our website. That way you'll get the announcement when the Moose on the Loose is available. And just like all of our other resources, you'll just be able to click and download it and take it for free.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right.
That's all for today's active listener. Thanks for tuning in. Share your comments on this episode on our Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn social media pages. You can visit our website at lightspeed-tech.com to learn more about our mission to ensure every student hears every word. And subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Until next time, let your listening be as active as your learning.